Welcome back to The Whole Picture. Fall foliage offers a variety of interesting, colorful subjects to photograph. But because there's so much variety in front of you, if you're not careful, you can miss the forest through the trees. And your pictures might end up looking mundane. My student, Angie Renfro, would like to create brilliant images, but so far her pictures are muddy looking and without a clear subject. So I'm meeting Angie to teach her how to capture vibrant color and lead the viewer's eye into what she wants them to see. Hey, Angie.
Hey, Erin.
You getting some good shots?
I sure am trying. I love this farmhouse.
I do too. It's so beautiful out here. All this color is great. Now, I know you wanted to focus on color, and we've got blue sky and the red trim on this building and bright orange leaves, which are great. But first, we want to focus on great composition. To take a really professional shot, you want to pay attention to, first off, the rule of thirds. So you want to pick your subject, which I think this house looks pretty good. Yeah. And then position it in your viewfinder. And in my viewfinder, I've got a nice visual of the rule of thirds. And what this does is it segments your frame into like a tic-tac-toe board. So you want to put your subject of interest at one of these intersections here. And then as you're looking in the viewfinder, pay attention to everything going on in it. It's really easy just to look at the subject and then forget everything else in the frame. The other thing you want to do, too, to create a more interesting photograph is find something in the foreground that could frame your subject. For instance, this tree would make an excellent frame, so it'll create some depth to the photograph and really draw your viewer's eye in. Now, another thing to draw the eye in is to use, say, one of these branches as a lead-in line, and this will really create interest and emphasis on the subject. The first thing to do is identify the subject of your picture. Ask yourself, what do I want the viewer to remember from my picture? Find the subject in the viewfinder or LCD and move the camera slightly from side to side and up and down. This will give you an idea of what additional elements you can include in the photograph. Then decide if the image would look best framed vertically or horizontally. Once you have the general scene established, use the rule of thirds to frame your image. Imagine your viewfinder is divided into thirds vertically and horizontally. Compose the image so that the main subject is located at one of the intersections of the lines. Now, look for a lead-in line, something from the corner of the image to the middle or center of the subject. The best lead-in lines start from the lower left corner and move to the center. Diagonal lines create dynamic images and can lead the eye right to the center of your subject. If there's no naturally occurring lead-in line, you can introduce one yourself. Just try holding a branch a few feet from the camera and frame the shot using the branch to lead the eye into your subject. Another element to consider when composing your shot is color. Complementary colors are opposite from each other on the color wheel, like oranges and blues or reds and greens. The use of complementary colors in your photo can increase the dramatic focus on your subject. The final thing to consider when composing your shot is to simplify the image. So eliminate any extraneous elements that distract from the subject of your picture. Okay, you really honed in on the rules of composition in the last shot. Let's go ahead and apply those same rules to taking a close-up of these dogwood berries. Now, these beautiful red berries against the green tree are going to provide a compositional element of color for us. It's going to be great. One thing when you're shooting macro photography, though, when you're up this close, you're going to have a shortened depth of field, which makes focus really critical, and that's why we put this on a tripod. So let's go ahead and set it to the macro setting. Just choose that little flower icon on the mode dial. There you go. Another thing with shooting macro or close up is you can get in and see all the details. The downside is it reduces the amount of light that comes into your camera. So one way to compensate for this and let more light in is to increase your ISO setting. Now, ISO is like film speed on a camera. It lets in more light. Fill the frame with your subject and keep in mind the elements of composition you learned earlier, especially simplifying your image. And make sure your backgrounds are clear of distracting elements. When you're really close up, recognizable items like branches or litter will divert the focus from your subject even more. Sharp focus is critical for close-ups, so you want to avoid any camera shake, especially if the light is low. You'll need to steady your camera using a tripod or whatever else you can find to keep it still. Now you'll need to switch your camera into macro mode to allow you to get really close to your subject. Switching to macro mode is simple. Just select the flower icon on your camera. The macro mode allows you to get 2 feet or closer to your subject. Remember, as you move in closer to your subject, the amount of light coming into the lens will be reduced, so the camera will automatically adjust to let in more light. Generally, this means that the camera will set itself on a slower shutter speed and with a larger lens opening or aperture, which will cause your depth of field to decrease. To increase your depth of field, you will need to use a smaller lens opening. You can trick the camera into working with a smaller lens opening by manually increasing the ISO speed of your camera. To adjust the ISO, press the menu button, then navigate to the ISO option. Everyone's camera is different, so check your ISO setting and increase it to 800 ISO. Then exit the menu to lock in the new ISO. Take a look at how much more depth of field there is in the second picture with the higher ISO speed. Now that your camera is steady, set to macro mode, and has a higher ISO speed, let's turn our attention to the shadows in the picture. Professionals use silver, white, or gold reflectors to give themselves a little more control over the shadowed areas. Another option is to use a car sunscreen or even make something yourself from tin foil and cardboard. Whichever reflector you use, slowly adjust the position of the reflector until it brings more light into the dark areas of your scene. For more information on adjusting your camera sensitivity or anything you've seen here today, be sure to check out our website at DIYnetwork.com. While you're there, you can also see more of the pictures we took today. Are the extremes of autumn light washing out your images? Up next, I'll teach you how to make natural light work for you instead of against you.